Death work is ancient work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We've been dying as long as we've been living. We've been living as long as we've been dying.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to an episode of the Glam Reaper podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Muldowney, aka the Glam Reaper, and on today's episode, we are with all the G's. We've got Gabrielle Gatto in the house. Gabrielle, welcome. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. A dream actualized.
We are. Listen, the two of us, we're like those little the Grim Reapers, Glam Reapers. We're like two peas in a pod in this realm.
100%.
So tell us a little bit. I mean, if you don't know who Gabrielle is, which I would be highly shocked if you're following the Glam Reaper, you should know the queen of Greenwood Cemetery.
Oh, you're far too kind.
But you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your day job, I guess.
Sure. My day job that's on the graveyard shift. Yes, you have to be open to making some puns just to get through because yes, I'm Gabrielle. I work at the Greenwood Cemetery here in Brooklyn, and I see so much every day. So much. A lot of grief, but also a lot of joy. Greenwood is absolutely a living cemetery. It's 478 acres. I think it's a complete oasis. Just ask any bird that's migrating, hanging out at one of our glacial ponds.
Love.
Yeah, so I get to do the death education programs there with my incredible public programs team, Dr. Harry Weil, Daria Mergen, Tiva Boy, and everybody at Greenwood. They've really championed and supported me since I started on, and I know you know this, Jennifer, but I started on March 4th, 2020.
Wild.
In the events department. It was It was a really wild time, and
Life was lifing then.
yeah, and I just learned really quickly on hyperspeed what it meant to work at a cemetery operationally and also emotionally, how to show up for people in your community. And out of that, Amy Cunningham, our good friend, had already kind of established with the rest of the team before I had gotten there, like death cafes and tours of the crematory and lectures. And then, when I came in, I said, the community wants and needs more. And we just worked really hard to develop more. So I'm eternally grateful for that platform.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful cemeteries in New York, for sure. And I've been to quite a lot. And I will say a part of it is, I think, because it's so local as well. I mean, New York is known as the concrete jungle, and just a stone's throw away is this beautiful cemetery where
Stone man.
where you can just totally get lost. I remember during COVID, speaking of COVID, and I'm still laughing at you starting your career, like not your career, but like starting such an epic.
No, you're right. Literally, that's it. Yeah. I was working film festivals before that. So yeah.
Listen, I did that too. I did the Jameson Film Festival back home in Ireland. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't think we ever knew that about each other. So, but yeah, I remember during COVID, I ran in cemeteries. I walked in cemeteries. I was living in cemetery belt in Queens. I met friends for lunch in
in
Oh, wow.
cemeteries, in cemeteries, I think got a lot more. I got locked into one. That was fun.
During COVID. The gates closed at 4 o'clock, and I was like, "Wait, what? Closed? Hello?" I had to scale the gate.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Anyway,
Jennifer.
I know. My mother was like, "What do you mean you're locked into a graveyard?"
Oh God, I really should write a book on all these. Anyway, I would say cemeteries got actually a lot more traffic during COVID.
Absolutely. I got the data, I got the numbers for you. It was pretty wild. On average, sometimes we would see before COVID, 2,000 people on a weekend at Greenwood. And there was one weekend that it was well over 10,000. And, we were training we have an incredible volunteer program, trained a bunch of volunteers on the rules and regulations. So when a hearse was coming in, to come to the crematory, there weren't people playing with beach balls, but, mindfully contemplating, walking. And all of a sudden, it was this new green space in New York City that people were discovering. A lot of spillover from Prospect Park. So it was a really wild time. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we found a way to make it accessible to any and all who came through the gates. We opened the gates for longer and at additional entrances. But yeah, it was certainly a wild
Yeah.
time.
Like, honestly, it is one of those things that I do feel like, gosh, not to take a morbid turn on a podcast called The Glam Reaper.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
I do think on my deathbed, hopefully, like, what, 50 years from now, I think it will be a wild thing to say I lived in New York during COVID. I think of all the places in the world, and obviously being from Ireland, I was highly connected with what was going on there. But, I just think New York was hit in an extraordinary way during COVID and is still recouping from it, honestly.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm still processing. That's what therapists are for.
Yeah, right.
Itchy.
And it's like so many places closed down, and that's another thing I think that a lot of people don't realize about New York. I certainly didn't when I came to visit from Ireland on shopping trips and stuff. Like, that was what we sort of did back in the day, is that there are so many mom and pop stores
Yeah.
here to like the villages in Ireland. Like, it's not, yes, there are the Victoria's Secrets and the Macy's and the big corporations, but there are actually so many little, yeah, and so many of them got lost. Oh, made me so sad. I actually
Yeah.
remember I did a photo shoot in Greenwood. I'm just reminding of all these things now. I did a photo shoot
Pre-Glam Reaper.
yeah, during I think it was towards the end of COVID. I think we were kind of allowed a little bit out a bit more, but
Yeah. Yeah, I will say what's interesting is, at the height of things too, there's so much grief whizzing around and the tiny moments of people trying to find joy. And I just remember someone was like, I saw you on a dating profile, like you were in your company van, like driving by, and somebody had taken a picture in front of the Gothic arch. Apparently there were a lot of folks that went on dates there and found solace there. And I just think that's really groovy and really cool. And yeah, I found so much purpose in it. And I'm so humbled that I'm in the league of like death care uh professionals such as yourself. I never thought I'd be a death doula. And I felt like I just was answering a call of how I was already feeling so purposeful of working in the crematory and working to take burial orders with funeral directors and things like that. And now, I mean, I have, so G Gatto Parting and Healing is my death doula business, services, etc. It is a play on words. My father's business is called R Gatto Plumbing and Heating. So this is G Gatto Parting and Healing.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
That's so cute. And you're
Yeah.
so family orientated. I love that about you. You're so
you know, big Italian.
Yeah. Well, I will say this though, and I feel like this is a good reason as to why we get along so well. There's something about Irish and Italian, especially an Irish American, Italian American. We love being loud with our families and our chosen families and our friends. And when we grieve loudly. When we're joyful, we're so joyful. I don't know. I feel that you've had that experience, right?
100%. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's exactly why we get on. And it's also those cultures, both of those are so important in the US in terms of like immigration. I mean,
Yeah.
Irish typically married into Italian, Italian into Irish. So there's so many like of those families that then co-created. So we're very intertwined. I mean, yeah, it's very interesting that those two nationalities seemed to find each other over here. And I do think it's
The New York love story. It's a New Orleans love story too. And
yeah.
we're talking about port cities and just the way our cultures have mixed and evolved. I just think it's a gorgeous thing. So speaking of my Uncle Vinny, who I talk about all the time, you know this. My Uncle Vinny married my Aunt Diane, so my cousins are obviously gorgeous Italian, Irish Americans. And he just was the first person that showed me to go back to, women tell stories in circles. When we were talking about thinking about your deathbed, I think about my deathbed and I get tears of joy and sadness well up with me at the same time because when I think about his life, the way he approached family, who he was in his community in the FDNY, how he showed up for his brothers and sisters and siblings within that community. When I close my eyes, I want to make sure kept him proud, kept family at front and community at front, and had some laughs along the way. I mean, what we do is crazy. I cannot believe I I almost had my cord phone to bring on here for the Grim Reaper gossip bit of my life. I'm perpetually carry around this cord phone, which is actually, in honor of my great grandmother who loved to gossip on the cord phone. But yeah, I think about my deathbed all the time, and I'm like, I just want to make sure that the purpose, was fulfilled as much as possible. I'm rambling now. What else do you want to gossip
Oh,
about?
you're fine. You're fine. I love that. Actually, I'm going to take a tiny little slot out. I don't know when this recording will air. But I want to just give a little shout out to my dear friend Michelle, who just got promoted to deputy chief in the FDNY. I mean, absolutely delighted. I love seeing women making moves, and no better woman to kick some ass. So especially
Amazing.
current climate in America, I love to see it. So I'm very proud of her. So just since you mentioned
Yeah.
the NY, which is the fire.
That's
Fire department.
incredible.
Yeah. So, but actually, you mentioned something there. So we've got so you're working in Greenwood. I mean, you're a busy lady. You're working in Greenwood in the cemetery. You're a program director there. And you mentioned your death doula business, and you also mentioned the Grim Reaper gossip. So tell us a little bit about the Grim Reaper gossip, and then we're going to come back and kind of connect.
Well, what's funny is I remember before I knew you, and I just was like, who is this fabulous lady with this Glam Reaper podcast and this awesome goth Barbie logo?
No, I love the
Um,
pink.
it's so good. Um, yeah, so Grim Reaper gossip was kind of just born out of this need for I had some death doula colleagues that were like, sometimes it's really difficult to start conversations with parents and family. And I don't know, I'm an only child of parents that had me late in life. So if there are any only children out there listening, reach out. We have stuff to chat about. And I was like, "Ooh, I don't have that problem at all. I'm so Italian. Every month it's either a wedding or a funeral in my family. I'm no stranger to this. But a lot of people, I was like, "Wow, okay. How can we have these conversations more?" And there was just this thing brought up one day of, well, your mom likes reality shows and gossip. Why don't you talk about a funeral, either fictional or from a reality show or something, or from a show? See what comes up when you're using that external agent to invite an actually real, authentic conversation. And I just realized how beautiful of a tool that was to really work for a lot of folks, right? Because, think about it this way, Jennifer, just, oh my God, there was so many lilies there. That's so tacky. I've seen it done 1,000 times. I want cabbage flowers at my funeral. There's a little nugget of something really important. So Grim Reaper gossip is a little bit more outside of the traditional death doula services I offer. It's an event space where I can either curate a death deck game night at your house to really get the conversation going. Curate experiences around it. For example, very emotional, but my parents and I went to the estate planner and lawyer together, and it was, I walked in there, Jennifer, and I was like, yeah, I'm a death doula and I work at a cemetery. This is gonna go great. And I was like, oh my God, you're giving me the house when you die. I would not okay. It was hilarious, actually. I was like, because when it's you, it is different, right? And
Yeah.
I said to my parents, I was like, whatever happens in that room with those lawyers and that paperwork, we're getting expensive sushi dinner after this because we're going to curate a really good memory around one step in the end of life care process. So that's kind of what it's about. I will help you have that experience tailored to your family and your loved ones, right? Hey, you guys really like going to Six Flags? You're going to have a really hard Saturday where, you talk about management of possessions and what you want your dream deathbed to look like if you're lucky enough to go that way, to leave this earth that way. And then let's attach something really meaningful alongside it.
Yeah, I love that. We actually had, I'm not sure if it was season 1 or season 2. It was a total fangirl moment for me. I had the absolute honor of having Dr. Catherine Mannix on the podcast.
Ah,
I mean, just unheard. Like that book just changed how I think about like death and dying myself.
yeah.
I think, like similar to what the thought you had going into the lawyer's office, I think a lot of people look at us in this field and assume we're okay with everything. And it's very different when it comes to your own family. I mean,
Right.
I might sit down and do a pre-plan with my mum, which I have done, but like we cried, we laughed, we did all of the stuff. It doesn't mean I'm looking forward to her going anytime soon. Like I will be broken, like absolutely no question. And so it's just interesting how people make these assumptions. But I remember Dr. Catherine Mannix, she had said when I asked her about sort of approaching, because we got that a lot, is how do I approach this topic with my parents? They're elderly. I don't want to think about them dying, but we need to get this sorted. And that's exactly the advice she gave, which was attach something good to it, whether it's afternoon tea or a treat in some way, and just make it a better memory. And that works for some people and it doesn't work for others. It was some sort of a workshop in Greenwood, and this woman behind me, I don't know if she knew me, or I think she knew me or something. We got chatting anyway, and she asked me. She was kind of going through this issue, and as much as you can, maybe try and attach a treat to her,
Mm-hmm.
attach a treat to the situation. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. Like for me, trying to keep.
But it's a tool to try, and it's right to put it back in the
Yeah,
box and pick something else up.
exactly. Like for me, I mean, one of my closest friends, he literally has said it to me like the last couple of times we've seen each other. He's like, we haven't done it yet, but because again, you have to wait until people are ready to receive it. But he's like, I really want to do a pre-plan with you. And he said, what I love, I mean, obviously we're best friends or whatever, but he said, what I love about you is you talk about this in just such a fun, normal way. Like it's normal. And so similar to the situation, one, we didn't need to add a treat to it because it was just we just opened a bottle of wine. We went through the questions. It was not daunting. It wasn't, we cried at the certain moment. And we had a laugh, which I've told the story a gazillion times about how she wanted Rod Stewart's Maggie May played at her funeral, where I wanted wind beneath my wings.
Corny, corny. Ooh.
Well,
So we had more laughs than we did tears when we were doing her funeral. So we didn't need to attach a treat. The treat was just us spending time and enjoying it.
Yeah.
So, and I think you're probably similar in so far as,
we take a really dark topic and, we make it light. It's going to happen to us all. There's no getting out of it alive. Even you, Elon Musk.
There ain't no getting out of it alive.
There absolutely isn't. And that's the crux of it too, Jennifer, right? Is how do we make this something that we can successfully return to talking about?
Yeah.
If you have that one initial having a bottle of wine with a friend, writing out some of the answers to the both big and small questions, all of a sudden it becomes more accessible to return to. All of a sudden you're like, I never thought I'd be listening to this Glam Reaper thing, but this lady has some really good tips and tricks when it comes to end of life care. And then it's a beautiful snowball of people just interacting with death, dying, grief, and loss, and in these bigger, profound ways. And I'm so curious to hear from you if you've kind of felt like this unearthing as well from so many folks, just that they're recognizing grief not only with human loss, but I know you do such amazing work with like pet celebrancy and pet loss and with pet parents. And I work a lot with like disenfranchised grief. I myself don't have siblings, but I know so many wonderful people in the space of talking about and writing about sibling loss, because that's something that when we survey people at Greenwood and we say, how can we show up better for you? What else would you want on your roster besides Death Cafe and Grieving and Weaving, which is so much fun. You have to come. We knit and crochet and collage, and it's so much fun. What else would you want on the roster? And, someone suggested a panel on sibling loss. And I was like, I met some really amazing people at the Grieftastic Book Fair with Megan Riordan Jarvis. She put together a great panel about sibling loss, chock full of awesome authors. And, now we're going to explore how to connect with that and bring that to the community. And yeah, so I would love for you to just talk about like non-human loss a little bit and how that's shown up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually last year, which it is interesting, and I talked about this with somebody else, is I have realized I'm not an academic.
So last year I went back
to school, 42 years. So, like, I think previously the last diploma I got was maybe like, I don't know, 2014. I don't know. Anyway, it was a good like long time ago, I would say. Now I'm constantly learning, I'm always reading, doing all the things, but like actual academia, going back to college, going back to school, whatever. So I did a course in AI, pet loss, and grief and bereavement, right? Yeah.
Wow. That's a triple, that's a combo.
Yeah.
That is a
Which,
combo platter.
doing those three, I was like, okay, that's it. We're done. That's it. Academia, not for me. Just because, and it's not that there's no place for this. I actually think there's an incredible place for both. I've really realized that I'm definitely more of a practical, real person. As in, I'm not saying that an academic isn't. I'm just more real with situations. And I feel like there is a lot of judgment out there
on the different types of grief and different
types of losses, but there's also judgment insofar as, well, are you a licensed therapist? Are you a professional? And I know this is a huge bone of contention in the community between funeral directors, licensed funeral
Absolutely.
death doulas, and all that sort of stuff. But I definitely found that I know I'm really good at my job. My job being I'm a celebrant event planner, and it's taken me a long time to get there to actually say those words. Thank you, based in humble Ireland. You're not okay.
You're good at anything.
I know all about that.
Yeah, like those families. Thank you for that. Healing the inner child. But what I
there's grief in that too, and joy.
100%, yeah. But what I noticed is I learned from my experiences, and I've been doing this for 16 years. And when I say I know I'm good at my job, like I never pretend to be something I'm not. I'm not a licensed doctor. I'm not a death doula. I am not a lawyer. I am not a licensed therapist. However, I can still sit with somebody in grief. I can still be a vessel for them to dump their feelings. And I was actually at the European Grief Conference in Dublin just there before Christmas, which was an incredible experience. But they were talking.
Take me with you next time.
We're in Portugal next year, girl. We're going. Actually, I do want to talk to you about. I can't. It's top secret, but I'll talk to you about something after the recording. Sorry, everybody.
Leave you on the hanger. You'll hear about it soon. But I leaving those breadcrumbs. I hate people that leave breadcrumbs.
So, but anyway, at the conference, they were talking about how can we support and encourage community like, and sort of like, okay, I might have lost my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my dog, right? I could have lost her, so I'm grieving. I may not be able to afford a professional, or I might not get to a professional, right? Okay, now we have Zoom. It's making everything a little bit more accessible. So how can we still support people? Like, what about my neighbors, my family that's left, friends that are left? So it was just such it just turned the cogs in my brain so much, where I just thought, this is it. And then just because I had been back at school
doing all these other things, and
and I've totally digressed off your point, but I am circling back to it, is that I did a pet loss one and I actually did a grief and bereavement one, and I chose to do high alignment essay, my kind of finale on pet.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Like, I thought I was doing this essay and I was writing it out. And yes, it was like, to me, it was very academic. I don't think they thought it wasn't as academic as it could be. And I kind of thought,
You're like, I'm a poet.
well, it kind of just put it in my head that I thought, okay, but is writing a textbook, like a heavy academic book about loss, is that any better worse than somebody just talking about, like, I have been told so many times, oh, well, you're not a licensed funeral director, so you shouldn't be doing this, or you're not able to listen, you don't want somebody who's not like trained as a brain surgeon doing surgery on a brain. I get it. And I do think when it comes to the physical body, there are medical things that need to be followed. And I do think, in Ireland, we don't even have licensing. So, we're like the rest. But I guess the point is that there's just so many facets to this. And we used to deal with bodies in the home. We used to wash them ourselves. Ourselves. And when did it become this sort of crazy, professionals only, therapists only, licensed only sort of field? And I just, when it comes to losses of all type, including pet loss, and what I wrote my essay on was non-human loss, and I probably will publish it at some point, but I just, it kind of goes back to the TEDx talk that I did, which I'm so glad it's not out of date in terms of what I was trying to say, which is just to take judgment out of the equation. And this is something that I do believe, rather than judging somebody for the grief that you don't deem as appropriate. I'm like, why are we using a hierarchy? Why are we issuing that, okay, you've lost your mom, so
I think the jig is up on that one. I definitely do. Finish your thought, because I have a whole train that I'm going to take you on.
Yeah, and so I just, and then, so it's like judgment when it comes to our grief, but then it's equally like in this community of professionals coming together.
Right.
I do think I agree with the licensure for a funeral director. I do agree with it. I don't agree with how it's designed, because I, for example, would have loved to have actually become a licensed funeral director, but I do not ever want to embalm a body. I don't want myself embalmed unless my parents want to, which they don't. I don't want them embalmed. Like, it's not for me. I've seen embalming. I think the people who do it are incredible human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just not for me.
I am a people person. Similar to yourself, I'm a people person. I could gab all day.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about the, the gift to the gab. And so it's like, I do think it should be split into, the two different things. I think you should have an understanding of the science behind embalming and all.
Yes. Yeah.
So it comes down to, for me, I think the death doula thing, I think, is also an interesting topic. And obviously I know you being one. And as a celebrant, I've noticed this trend of death doulas coming to the fore, if you like. And I love and hate it. I love it because it is trendy, and so it is putting it out in popular culture, which is amazing.
Right.
I'm here for anything.
Yeah. I'm both so excited and also like, oh, now you know what I was talking about for you,
Yeah.
It is funny. But so what I will say though, based off of everything you just said, I think and of course, like, the space, it's a little bit of the Wild West right now, right? I've seen that used in even like, just literature about where we're at in death care. And what I am such a firm believer and proponent in, Jennifer, is why can't we figure out a way to all be on the same team? Because that's how I have always, that is how I've always seen it. Example I always give, just for anecdotal evidence, my Aunt Loretta died last year. And she had Down syndrome. She was such a spitfire. One of her dreams was to like live in her own apartment with her friends. It broke my heart because she was living with us, but she went and she lived with her friends in this group home. And the director of the home was like, you know what? A lot of our residents are getting older. I believe that they should die at home if that's what they want. So they converted the computer room into a hospice room. And that's where we moved my Aunt Loretta. And the hospice doctors and nurses were incredible. The people that took care of her in the home were incredible. The funeral director, once she went, a good family friend, was incredible. I'd stayed with the gravediggers while they lowered her down, and they were incredible. They're on my team, but me as the death doula, I walk in and I see bare walls. And I know her my whole life. And I know that we lose so much moisture in our lips at the end of life. And I knew she loved chocolate pudding. So I ran to Walgreens and got Lip Smackers chocolate chapstick. Put lavender oil on her hands. I gave them my Amazon password so that she could watch Dirty Dancing on a loop because, she could sound, right? And also, you'll love this. A few weeks before she died, I called my Aunt Rosemary and I was like, what are we going to do for the funeral favors? And she was like, how could you talk about that at a time like this? And I was like, well, she's in hospice. We know she is leaving soon. She lived well, and I want to make sure she leaves well too. And she loved keychains. So we gave everybody a little L keychain at the funeral. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, whenever someone called to ask us how we were doing, they had this anchor point. They had this thing to refer back to say, like my one friend at the cemetery that came, she was like, oh my goodness, Aunt Loretta saved the day. I couldn't find my keys and the keychain was, hanging on the hook just the right way. I caught it. Or, one of my dad's friends who is, an older dude was able to find an access point that he probably normally didn't have of saying, oh, hey, Rich, yeah, I'm using Loretta's keychain. Like, how you doing? It's been a few weeks now. And then my aunt was just like, oh my goodness, that was incredible. What a small detail. But yeah, I mean, in order to get 100 keychains to Long Island in time, we ordered them a week before she died. I am on that team. I was like, well, this is what I know I'm good at and what I can facilitate and the experience I could curate. And I asked her questions and we talked about trusting her body and that it knew exactly what it was doing. And for her to, one of the last things, like she said, I was like, Patrick Swayze's on TV. She's like, I know, I love you, thank you. And it was the cutest moment ever. But anyway, so back to this whole idea of being on the team. I work at Greenwood. I work in the crematory doing paperwork on the weekends. I'm not a licensed crematory operator. I love working in concert with them, though. I love making sure that the paperwork that I do, that I put in, these legal documents, that is the last great act you can do for someone is to make sure, you put their name in the system right. So when their great, 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 great granddaughter comes to Greenwood to, memorialize them and be at the site of their cremation or just connect, whatever they choose to do, that's all right and proper, right? And that's the thing. It's everyone in admin that is, stamping the paperwork from the funeral director. These funeral directors come in. I love working with them. And I do think we ought to consider ourselves all on this larger team. Death work is ancient work. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We've been living, we've been dying as long as we've been living. We've been living as long as we've been dying. And I just firmly believe, hey, death doulas, it's a non-regulated thing. It's non-medical palliative care. Every death doula has something different to offer. Maybe that's the exact right space for that to happen. And maybe there will be regulations that come along, or maybe every hospice in America has a death doula on staff, works with hospice volunteers. Maybe funeral directors have a resident death doula. Like we joke at Greenwood, I'm like the resident death doula at Greenwood. And I that's how I can help, and I can help guide them into, what is best for them before they go talk to our memorial counselors, so they're more empowered to have that conversation when they get to that person on the greater team. So I think we need to hang out more. Put it very simply, I think the funeral directors, the hospice doctors and nurses, the celebrants, people in the pet loss and non-human loss space, cemeterians, what am I forgetting? There's so many
There's so
facets.
many.
You were right when you said that.
Yeah, there is actually so many, and it's so mind blowing to me.
To still to this day see it be so fragmented and so
Yeah, it doesn't need to be.
this is
Let's
just
change it.
my area. Yeah. And it's for me, I'm not saying let's all join hands and get all muddled in the middle. Like
Right, exactly.
like even as an event planner, as a memorial planner, I'm very much like
Stick to your lane.
like, you know, if you're
Sure. Yeah.
you're the musician, if you're the florist, you're the florist.
You
Right.
know, florist doesn't
Right.
go
Let
and
the
do
florist be
celebrate
the
job.
florist. Let the funeral director be the
Exactly.
funeral director.
Like I'm
Yep.
always
Yeah, I'm always joking. I'm like, nobody's the Cheesecake Factory, okay? You can't do everything.
Wait, I love that so much. Yes, there's so much truth into that. It's each person in the team has a role, and that role should be celebrated and understood, and then all of a sudden the pieces of the puzzle really can come together.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant, and I think that's a wonderful way to end this episode. As much as I think you and I could waffle on for days, weeks, months, I don't
think
We
I
truly could, yeah.
think we burn the ears off everybody. So we might have to just get Gabrielle back on the episode. Maybe we'll have her like every season, or maybe you'll just be a recurring guest, or maybe we'll join forces. Who knows? I mean,
Sounds good to me.
wilder things have happened. Wilder things have happened. Thank you so much for all the work you do. And just generally, like, yeah, putting like follow her on socials and stuff like that, because you just put good juju out into the world, and it's good vibes, just, you know, all that zhuzhy stuff. And yeah, we look forward to watching this space.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everybody stay glam, keep gabbing about death care. And I hope we get to talk soon.